Well, 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 PlayStation has finally confirmed a new event, and it's not a showcase, but a state of play instead, which is airing very soon. But as per usual, let's talk about some predictions and, well, what got us here, because there's been a lot of build up until now, and not being a showcase, I think there's a lot of questions going on with PlayStation's first party. So this is interesting, right? Because it's been a year since that last showcase, and for a lot of people, rightfully so, it was seen as disappointing. I thought it was going to be bigger than what it was. But there is two sides to that coin, which is there were 4 PS Studio announcements. That actually is a lot when you consider how long games take to make. Sony at the time only had 16, but now 15 in-house studios. So as a mix of in-house and external second-party teams, 4 is a decent amount for any kind of live stream. But it is something where Spider-Man 2 gameplay was the highlight, sure, but then you had 2 CG trailers for live service games, so understandably people are kind of writing those off immediately. And then Helldivers 2 is the other one, which, ironic now looking back, that game became so big. But it's still something where that was seen as disappointing. So there's been a lot of pent-up demand to where we are right now, and everyone thought, hey, we're going to get another showcase around the same time. And considering we're on year 4 of PS5, last year was a peak year for the console. This is still technically a similar peak year where the company's going to sell a lot of consoles, and we need to get a better idea of what the roadmap is for the back half of the PlayStation 5 life cycle. So there is some fair expectations in place that this should be a bigger presentation. But, the very weird thing about this is we already had a live stream this year, which was a state of play, which for many can be hit or miss. I mean, they really run the gamut nowadays. We've had very boring sort of whatever state of plays and some that are really good. I would argue that the last one really was the best one, not the Final Fantasy VII Rebirth state of play, so the one prior to it where, I mean, that thing was loaded. We had trailers for Helldivers 2 and Silent Hill 2. There was the Silent Hill, the short message, which Shadow dropped. There was gameplay overviews of Rise of the Ronin and Stellar Blade. Until Dawn was revealed for PS5 and PC. Death Stranding 2 on the beach also got this big blowout with gameplay and a final name, and then Kojima and Herman made that announcement for Physant, whatever that thing's called, and then third parties had, Sony showed off Dragon's Dogma 2, Sonic Cross Shadows Generations, there was Judas, Metro Awakening VR. I mean, that was an extremely strong state of play, better than the showcase from last year. You know what I mean? So I'm already seeing some theorize that maybe Sony's just looking to drop drop the showcase name, as in let's just stop, using this sort of separate identifier for a kind of live stream that people expect to be a lot bigger than state of plays. Maybe they're just trying to blur the lines with, what to expect from state of plays nowadays. Although Sony outlines usually every time now on the PS blog what will be in a state of play, that being their first party partners, third party partners, this and that, right? So they've always been extremely fair with that. But given the name of state of play, it's something where expectations are set in a way that's often lower than a showcase. So maybe Sony's looking to just get rid of the showcase name. Or, and here's the other awkward spot that we're in, we know Sony brings things to Summer Games Fest. And we've had a number of very big things show up there as well. So we could have announcements shared between this presentation and then Summer Games Fest. And then there's also later in the year. Now, I'm not going to sit here and go, if this thing's bad, then that means we're probably getting a showcase in the September slot as we saw with prior years. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is it might get a little bit awkward with what we expect is a PlayStation 5 Pro presentation. Now, there's not much of a pattern there that we can really go by. We only have PS4 Pro as our one singular SIE example, and in that case, when they did a presentation for that, that was more, talking about the hardware, Mark Cerny demonstrating and, going into detail about, sort of their design principles for the hardware. They did have trailers and things like that for PS5 Pro settings or modes that were going to be available for certain games that were already announced, but that's the caveat. They were already announced. It wasn't necessarily a stage for new game announcements. That was more of a general hardware presentation, also announcing the Slim console as well and a price drop and all that, right? So if we assume it's going to be similar to that, then it won't be game announcements. So maybe they'll just simply do PS5 Pro in a similar fashion. maybe there would be another event. Maybe it would be another state of play. At this point, we don't really know. It's all speculation, of course. But one thing is for certain, we do know there's a number of first-party teams that should be ready to start talking and showing something. So with that in mind, we'll just do some brief predictions, which we already know there's like some very safe bets going into this based off the most recent rumors that we've been getting for an Astrobot game. So there was a report from Bilbo Kuhn about a new Astrobot title that's been, going on for a bit as well. That would fall in line with, not sort of being outside of what Sony has already said for this fiscal year, where they're not expecting major sequels to existing IP that are expected to move, 10 plus million units. Astrobot is still fairly modest in terms of an IP, and I would assume that's the case for this game as well. So we'll probably see Astrobot, Concord as well, because Sony recently reaffirmed that this game is shipping this year still, despite us only having a CG trailer. So it is more than a guarantee that we're probably seeing Concord either here or Summer Games Fest. And that was, again, another report from Bilbo Kuhn. The other one, which I am very curious about, is this Horizon Lego Adventures game. The really weird thing about the Lego game is that it came out of nowhere, like right out of left field. I don't think many people were really expecting this particular project, but that was right on top of already a number of Horizon projects that could have been here instead, right? So out of nowhere, this other game is now the front runner for being the most likely candidate of getting announced. But at the same time, we still could see Horizon, the remake, being announced, assuming that's still real and they're going to ship that fairly soon. Now, this is where it gets into the territory of, if I predict any more, right, it's this kind of goes into what I thought would have been, okay, if it's going to be a showcase and it's going to be this very big presentation, and this assumes that they were still, they still cared about the name of these things. But I would have figured that maybe Insomniac can also talk as well. Not Wolverine, but it actually would be something where maybe we'd see some Spider-Man 2 DLC get announced. But yeah, as far as PlayStation Studios go, the only other thing we can hope for is an XDev surprise, because that really is like the most likely, or even maybe things we can discuss for in-house teams. The only other one, I'm not feeling this, but it would be nice if it does show up, is Fire Sprite's horror game. So maybe that could show up as well, or if Polyphony wants to talk about Gran Turismo. But in-house PS Studios, that is it. Now, the other things that we could expect, I mean, Bungie is now properly within the PlayStation umbrella, not PS Studios, but it would still be fair to say they'll show up and maybe show another trailer for the Destiny 2 Final Shape expansion. There's the India Hero Project and Shining Hero Project, right? So, I mean, Sony might want to have another stage for showing off these games. We could still see more from Lost Soul Aside or Convaleria. PlayStation VR2 could get another very sort of swift montage with multiple game announcements. So, I mean, with PSVR 2, I think the more broad way to look at it is anything announced recently on MetaQuest 2, 3 that does not have a PSVR 2 version confirmed. It'd be great to see a lot of those games finally get confirmed for PSVR 2. We do know that for Silent Hill, that actually just got an announcement for a Silent Hill transmission on May 30th, which it's something where, okay, that means it either isn't here and the release date announcement is on Konami's terms, or it will be a back-to-back thing. That happens too. We actually saw Sony do this with the showcase last year with Spider-Man 2, where we got a full-blown gameplay reveal, no release date, and then 2 weeks later, the release date shows up at Summer Games Fest. So anything can happen. We don't have to look at the transmission and go, oh, well, that's it, it's over. We don't know that. But we are hearing that the Resident Evil 9 rumor, I guess that game is now further out than we thought. Capcom, I would love to see Pragmata. I would hope that game is not like another Deep Down. Maybe Little Devil Inside will appear again with a release date announcement, considering they also came back to life as well. And then other well-known third-party partners, your EA, Square Enix, and then also the Ragnarok PC announcement, which we're expecting very soon as well. Since that can obviously, it could show up during a State of Play or a showcase, although they always, to me, read as a Summer Games Fest announcement. But I think it should go without saying, not everything we're going over is like gonna show up, but rather these are likely candidates, and then 3, maybe 4 of these things would show up. everything showing up is unrealistic, but these are the likelies to maybes. Really, those first 3 games that we talked about, that being Concord, Astrobot, and this Lego game, seem to be the most likely, and then everything else is kind of a toss-up. With that said, thank you so much for watching. We'll see the presentation very soon, and we'll talk about it then. So thank you so much for watching. You take it easy.